Welcome back for the next session. Now I would like to introduce Dr. V. Ananthanatarajan to the participants. Dr. V. Ananthanatarajan sir is currently working as Associate Professor in Sri Vidyaniketan Engineering College, Tirupati. He did his full-time research at Annamala University under UGC-sponsored major research project titled Text to 3D Visual Speech Synthesis with a funding of 12.5 lakhs. He has overall research experience of 10 years in the field of machine learning and deep learning. His areas of interest include biomedical image processing, speech recognition, speech synthesis, and large scale text analytics. He is working on a project titled Pest and Disease Detection from Drone Captured Images using deep learning techniques sponsored by the Vidyaniketan Educational Trust. He was instrumental in getting the AICTE Modrops fund of rupees 10.44 lakhs for modernization of computer graphics lab to computer vision lab. He headed the project for developing a revenue prediction system for Telugu movies, which is sponsored by 24 Frames Factory, an Indian film production company established by Mr. Manchu Vishnu. He has participated in national level hackathon and won cash prizes. He published several articles in peer-reviewed journals and conferences. As an active member of the Leading India.ai project, a pan-India project endorsed by AICTE, he is conducting several training programs for faculty, students, and research scholars on applied AI, machine learning, and deep learning. With this brief introduction, I request Natarajan sir to take over the session.
Uh, Good afternoon, all. Uh, Thanks to the organizing team for a wonderful opportunity to interact with you all. Uh, okay. I hope the very few earlier sessions, would have introduced you to the world of cyber security and the very fundamentals of cyber security and the threats and other related concepts. My session will be focused on exploiting the potential of machine learning for devising an cyber security mechanism. So, how do we use this machine learning concepts and algorithms for providing solutions in case of enhancing the security of a system? Right? So, as we all know that the cyber security, the subject itself deals with developing solutions to protect the systems. If the system may be a hardware or software, or maybe especially data, right? So which is high valued when compared to hardware or software nowadays. Right? So uh, the main problem is that all the hardware or software or data are connected over internet. So when it is being connected and exposed, right? So when it is being connected, so it is being exposed. So there is a high likelihood that no chance of potential threats are high, right? When it is being connected and exposed to the external world, right? So even though there are so many restriction policies and access, mechanisms are there, so authorized mechanism. So we have so many, layers of security. So still there is a high chance of, intrusions are happening. So few cases we are seeing, for example, in 2018. So there is a huge series of threat for many systems, especially no banks, schools, and other universities were suffering from this ransomware, where the Trojans, what they try to do is they try to encrypt the data available with us and to decrypt or to get the key. So they were demanding money. So this kind of threats are happening seriously, and even big companies are suffering from it. So still, right after this 2017 and series of event in 18, many research approaches towards this cyber security solutions focused on utilizing this machine learning algorithms. So even though there was earlier attempts were made, but in the large scale after this 2017 and 18, So many machine learning based solutions have been proposed. So when we speak like machine learning based solutions, we require a huge volume of data, obviously. So hope we know that no, these machine learning algorithms learn from the data, right? So for example, if it is earlier mechanism, we will devise rules based upon some threshold or reference values, and when the rules based upon these rules, we identify few threats in our system. So that is how the earlier approaches were, which were not that much efficient to detect even. For example, the general approach is that we will profile the normal behavior of the system. So, and when there is a deviation from the normal behavior, then we will classify that as an anomaly or a threat or any intrusion or whatever it is. That was the earlier approach, and when we started using this, adapting towards this machine learning algorithms for devising a cybersecurity solution, the first problem is we need a huge volume of data, and the majority of the data, whatever available with us, is very raw, and it needs more understand. No, we need to understand more on the data and its characteristics. And the second challenge is that so we need to extract more relevant and reliable features out of it. No, sorry, I have a so I have shared my screen. So what I'm going to present, yes. So I'm not no discussing in a conventional mode like preparing a PPT and presenting it. So my session will be focused on a practical demonstration of how we design a machine learning based solution for cyber security issues. So I have prepared a few data set and the related Python program. So we'll see the demo, and I will be sharing this program and as well as the data after this session through the organizing team. So now I want to brief. Just want to give a brief introduction. So that is why I'm just discussing now. After that, we will look into the program. So. Right. So what I was saying is, like, we need a large volume of data, and even if we are able to collect a large volume of data from various network logs, right? So it is very raw. We need to extract more efficient and reliable features out of it. And once we have a set of features extracted from the raw data, we have to model a machine learning algorithm. So, and secondly, like, we have to identify an optimal algorithm that could be able to better understand the data, right, or the features what we have in hand with us, and provide us a efficient results, right? So even now, a little one step ahead, right? So apart from these machine learning, conventional machine learning algorithms like our decision trees, random forest algorithm, isolation forest, and logistic regression algorithm. So apart from these conventional machine learning algorithms, now sophisticated deep learning algorithms are being used now. So these deep learning algorithms, right, have a capacity to learn the features by themselves from the raw data, right? So it is a end-to-end learning model, right? End-to-end learning algorithms. So even we need, even if a raw input is being given as an raw data is being given as an input to the algorithm, these deep learning algorithms, they are able to, right, extract the features, and those features will be used for further analysis, like. So usually, the kind of problems, what we solve in machine learning world, or even in case of deep learning world, is like either we do classification or we do clustering of the data, or it will be a major, some of the time it will be a regression kind of problem. So the same kind of approach we will follow here in case of cyber security solutions also. Majority of the time it will be a classification task, because we just want to classify whether the network traffic is a normal or anomalous one. Right. So this we will take it in the form of a classification task, and then we will be implementing it. The second, many of the time, what we will use is generative networks we will use, right? For example, as I said, like we need more volume of data for machine learning tasks, and even more no volume when compared to the machine learning, we require for a deep learning no algorithms to train themselves. So what we need to do is sometimes if we are in a position, right, where we are in scarce of data, then by the time we can able to synthesize, right, artificial data, right, synthesize our own data using a very less volume of data what is available in hand with us. So for that we have few generative networks like that will help us to synthesize more data. So like classification, synthetic data generation, and recommendation engine. Like in these kind of recommendation no engine, what we will based upon the analytics and no understanding of the data, so we will be able to no take some few decisions like whether it can be anomalous or not. Like it's slightly there is a no thin difference between the classification task and this kind of recommendation engine what we adapt. So these are the few right approaches what we will be using. So the very basic examples that I can give you is very simple one is malicious URL detection. For example, when we are having a huge followers in a Facebook or any social media page, and many people will be sharing a few messages and posts, and in that I know we will be uh, majority of the time it will be like some fake or some websites, malicious websites, URLs will be posted. So, and if some people right click on that unknowingly, it will lead to so many damages to the data or the software what is available in the corresponding system. So what we could able to do is we can able to identify these kind of malicious URL, and we can automatically delete these messages like spam filters in email. So all these are few basic examples where we can use this machine learning algorithms for implementing such a solution. And even in our Windows operating system, we have the Windows Defender, which has a series, many layers of AI made solutions that will defend us from so many threats actually, right? So even AI based solutions were started only in this Windows 10 series, right, of this Windows operating system. So before to that, they had a defense mechanism, which were a rule based one, or the other conventional approaches. So, but after this 2018, this in Windows 10 series, operating system, they had combined this AI along with this defense mechanism, what is being adapted. So, and the second question what we will have in our mind is when we want to do implement an machine learning based solution, we need data, and how we will be able to collect the data. So for this we have so many tools that can be easily integrated with Python, right? Wireshark or no other few tools are there. So using which we can able to collect and log all the network data. But the problem is like when we collect the data, the proportion of normal and abnormal data what we have, for example, normal traffic data and anomalous traffic data will be right, the proportion, the ratio between these two will be very very low. For example, if I have collected 1,000 records of network traffic, out of this 1,000 no very very one or two or maybe 10 records will be related to anomalous traffic, and remaining all will be normal traffic. That itself is a huge difficult for us to build a machine learning model with this raw data. For example, when we build a data using this raw data, right, like more number of normal samples and very very less number of abnormal samples, the problem will be like the model will be more biased now towards this normal. So now we need to introduce certain mechanism to balance this normal and abnormal data ratio, right? For example, we may use any oversampling technique, or we may use undersampling technique, so to balance this data and build the model, right? So this is one challenge or issue what we have to face when we are building a machine learning based solution, especially with the network captured data. The second is like more redundant or relevant data we will be having. So first task what we need to perform is, right, as in many of our no data analytics problem, we will be using few visualization technique to understand more about the nature and characteristics of the data. So essentially we have to employ such a kind of first step, or we have to follow that first step as a first step to better understand the nature and characteristics of the data. So even few visualization technique will help us to understand the range of anomalous data or the traffic whatever is available with us, and which are all the very essential features. Maybe like to a preliminary understanding we could be able to get with the help of this data visualization technique. So that should be the first step. And the second step is like performing little pre-processing tasks, like maybe like when we are capturing the data and storing this in a persistent file, like a few errors maybe in a few data maybe null. So we have to eliminate all this null values or null records, or maybe like some erroneous record. So once after cleaning this data or filtering this data, the second step is like we need to choose efficient features, right? Efficient features that can help us to better build our model, right? So and one more challenge is like when we collect the data in raw, right? When we collect the data in raw, labeling them will be a very huge task, because the all the machine learning approaches what we follow, right, majority of the time it will be like it is in a supervised learning modality. So when we have a supervised, so when we want to train a model in a supervised mode, we need a data which is being already labeled one. So when we want a labeled data, right, what we have is no a raw data captured from our network, or maybe like from any simulated data we have. So then the second challenge is for us is like labeling the data, right? So the easiest option is like as I said, in the raw data, the ratio between the abnormal data, that is anomalous data, and the normal data will be very less. So we can able to discriminate them manually, and we can label them no manually, right? So once we label this data, the next step is like to perform any oversampling technique or undersampling technique. So when we use a oversampling technique is, for example, I have a total the number of records is 10,000, and out of this 10,000 records, 9,000 odd records are normal, and only very few, right? Very few hundreds of records are abnormal one. Now in this case, right, in this case, I have to oversample the abnormal data, right? So that maybe like from the few hundreds of sample, I have to synthesize more number of abnormal or anomalous traffic related data, so that the ratio now will become some 9,000 to 8,000 or 9,000 to 7,000. Like this will be the ratio between normal and abnormal data. Now think about another scenario where I have a no data in which I have labeled, right, the different threads, right, normal and thread category 1, thread category 2. Likewise, I have I have more number of more categories of abnormal data. So at this time, so now, for example, normal, abnormal category 1, abnormal category 2, abnormal category 3. Like I have 3 abnormal categories and 1 normal. So total 4 classes are there now with me. So out of these 4 classes, right? So I have, for example, normal, I have 2,500 sample. Abnormal category 1, I have some 2,000 samples. Abnormal category 2, I have few 1,500 samples. Abnormal category 3, right? I have only few hundreds of samples. Now this time also I need to perform an oversampling. For example, in the same way, right? So normal data I have 50,000 records. And again, abnormal data category 1, I have some 10,000 odd records. Like if I have few classes of records in thousands and only very few classes of no records in no less number, then for example, if I feel like for a particular class of record, I need minimum 1,500 samples. So this time I can able to down sample or under sample the no normal and the no other category of data records, and I can perform the modeling, right? See, for example, when we sort the no different categories of records based upon their no volume, right? If the least volume category, no the number of records, if it is sufficient, right? For example, if itself is more than like 2,000 or 3,000, right? And I have other categories of records in more number, right, than that. So then performing undersampling will be, right, a better solution. So what we need to ascertain here is the minimum number of records for a particular category or a particular class of no record is available or not. That we have to ensure, and we have to perform the modeling. So this is what the different stages in in developing a machine learning based solution for cyber security problems. So we'll be first I have three problems and the associated data with me now. So the first one, what we will see is no, the screen which I have shared you is a few data exploration and visualization technique we will use to analyze a data set where we have few data breaches recorded in US actually. So we will perform that. Sorry, we will just go step by step, and then we will see to the results. See, many of you would have already familiar with the these data visualization techniques, but still for the benefit of all the other people who are very beginners. So I'll try to explain. I will not take more time for this problem. We will see an next problem where we will try to identify a malicious URL using a classification approach. That will be our second problem. And third, we will same a classification approach we will follow to perform a anomaly detection in case of a network data. So I'm using a Google Colab environment where I have my data in my drive, and the corresponding Python program I have used to access the data and perform the data exploration. So I have my data. This is the data which we are going to use now. A breach report. From 2009 to 2017 year, right? Captured in US, and so let us see the structure first. What is the different data available in it? So we have a path issue, right? For example, so now, first what I have done is the data what is available with me is in the form of a CSV file. So I'm reading the CSV file and just first plot is on the, for example, right, before to that. So before to that, so let us see the structure of the data. Right. So this data contains these many columns actually. So each column describe one particular attribute. For example, name of covered entity, like which agency or the organization was affected because of this data breach, and it happened that the particular data breach happened in which state, and the type of organization and the number of individuals affected because of this particular breach, and the breach date, type of breach, right? And so these are the different type of data what is available. So how do we explore and see this using this conventional data visualization technique? Let us see. So this is a plot like a histogram plot actually. So that will help us to see like how many people the affected. So in each of the different category of these breaches, the frequency of the people who are affected, right? So for few data breaches, the number of people affected is very less, and for few breaches, the number of people who have been affected is more actually. Now, actually, in the next step, if I want to see like the state-wise, right, the geographical distribution of this, the threat. So, for example, the state of Illinois or Texas, the TX meaning that it is Texas. Like we could able to see that now few geographical regions where the threat is more. Right after this one, what we can able to now do is like the areas which we need to concentrate more, or the region, the geographical region which we need to concentrate more, that can be inferred actually. So this kind of plots now will help us to better understand the data and the characteristics of the attack, or the region of interest for the the attackers. So the data whatever we have in the form of the CSV, when we have a plot, we could able to understand the nature of the data. And for example, like these are the different categories of threats, and how many people affected, individuals affected for each of this one. So which is more serious or vulnerable, we can able to have a clear understanding on after seeing this kind of plots actually. So these are very few, the bar graphs, pie charts, even a scatter plot at times will help us to more understand, on the data. And the second, the supporting technology, or the set of algorithms what we use here in the cyber security data analytics is few NLP, algorithms. Like whatever the data we have, for example, if I'm collecting Facebook messages, they all will be in text form actually. So if I have URLs, if I have the descriptions of the threats, all this will be in the text format. So now what I want to do is, if I want to give this as an input to the machine learning model, I have to transform this text data into a numerical form. So for converting this, right, the very fundamental approaches like using a TF-IDF, like term frequency and inverse document frequency, vectorizer, right? So the process what we call here is a vectorization, right? So converting a text data into a numerical form. So the very fundamental one is using a TF-IDF vectorizer, right? So which majorly uses this, the frequency of the word, right? Individually have occurring in the text or the URL, or in some kind of messages, right? So using this term frequency and the inverse document frequency, we will be able to transform the text into a numerical form, and we will be applying that numerical data as an input to our model, right? So we will be using this NLP techniques at in few fundamental levels, and we'll be using, if that available data is a text data, like if it is a messages or a web description, so we will have a lot many special characters. If it is a message, we'll have many emotion icons. So all this, we have to remove, and then we have to do the vectorization, right? So this pre-processing will be little challenging for us, because the data, it will not be uniform, right? So if we take tweets, especially, right, and out of these tweets, I want to identify fake newses, right? So because many at this, particularly at this COVID scenario, many no fake news are being spread, and if I want to identify those fake tweets, and I want to block those IDs. So in such a kind of scenario, right, we have to initially do lot many text pre-processing tasks, where we will do lemmatization, stemming. So all this few basic operations we will do, and then we will clean the data, then we will perform vectorization, then we will be applying it to the machine learning model. So this will be our flow when we have a text data actually. So for performing this vectorization operation, in case of sklearn, right, the scikit-learn package, we have no TF IDF vectorizer. We can use this inbuilt function and easily transform our text data into a numerical representation. So sklearn, in that feature extraction is the module, and within that we have this TF IDF vectorizer function, right? So just we have declared a vectorizer object now, right? And we are applying our data X, right? Whatever we are captured, that out of this data what is available with us, we have a column called web description, which is a text data, right? So we are extracting that data alone, right? So in this step, what we have done is we have taken this web description and we have performed a little pre-processing task by replacing the space, and once we have this web description data, we have taken it in X, and we are applying this. So maybe like if it is small, I can just magnify, right? So after we do apply our data to the vectorizer, and this the X transform is our numerical representation of our text, right? So and the future array, so based upon the frequency count, if we want to sort and view like which are all the words that are frequently appearing, right? We can able to see this one, and like further, if we want to see like for example, if we are handling lot many email messages or Facebook messages, and particularly if we are want to like identify some messages where some like fake prize rewards kind of messages were being spreaded. In all those messages we could able to see few keywords that are prominently appearing. So when we want to filter out when we want to filter out the text or messages which contain those particular keywords, we can just use our own construct. Like for example, within a for loop we can able to see like whether if that particular keyword is present in our text, then we can just print and view, right? This kind of basic data exploration task will help us to better understand the data, right? So I leave this data and the code to the organizing team after the session, so you can explore more on this one, and maybe like if possible, I will just ask you questions after this. For all this I have given the code, and based upon the data I'll just ask you a few questions here. So you try to write a Python script for those questions, so that you can just practice. If you have any issue in getting a solution, or if you get any error, you can drop me a mail so that we can interact and we can develop a solution. So just I'll put an end to this data exploration technique. I just want to give you a very brief introduction. So next we will see on problem of identifying the malicious URL. So I'll just present that tab now. So the URL where I have taken this data is also available here, but I just downloaded and I have dumped it in my drive. So I'll share along with the drive itself, so that it will be easier for you to practice. So if few of you have issue or trouble in understanding how do we model a logistic regression, or how a logistic regression is functioning, we can discuss that regarding this logistic regression for a few minutes, and then we can proceed with this problem. I just want to know from the participants if you want me to discuss on this logistic regression also, or if you say like, no, we are comfortable with this principle of logistic regression, so that we can move on to next the problem, how do we implement it, then we will move on to the program implementation. So any few of you, if you want to learn about logistic regression, please let me know. Even please, you can communicate to us through your chat window. If you want to write, brief me on the principles and working uh, uh, principle of your logistic regression, I'll, no, we can go ahead. Means I don't understand actually. For example, you want me to brief on this logistic regression, or we can skip this and then we can move on to implementation. Yes, we will have a quick discussion on this one, and then we will move on to the implementation part of it. Right? See, any no machine learning algorithm, how do we model this? We will have a set of input, and we will, for example, let us take classification alone, right? So in a classification problem, especially when we use a supervised mode of majority of the time, not 99.9 times, we will be using a supervised mode of teaching for this classification algorithm. So in that scenario, the input I'll represent as capital X, and the output what I'm going to get as a Y, right? For example, small y. So this output Y will be a categorical value. For example, in case of a binary classification, if I want to classify the given input as a normal or abnormal, right? So, or in our general sense, like yes or no kind of cases, we can represent them in the using a binary like 0 or 1, right? So we will be labeling the normal as 1, abnormal as 0, right? So some people will use a 1 and -1 kind of representation also, but majority of the people will be following a 1 and 0 approach only, right? So when we have a multi-class, right? For example, I have a normal and abnormal category 1, abnormal category 2, like this. If I have a multi-class kind of scenario, I'll be using a label 1, 2, 3, right? So this is what the Y value will be, and the input X will be our features actually, right? For example, X1. So here in the previous examples, we have seen a data set where we had so many columns. So each column you consider as X1, X2, X3, X2 up to Xn, right? So n is the number of columns what we have. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to map the given input to a label Y, right? So all the features whatever is being given to us, right, which we call it as an in our terminology as an independent variables, we are trying to map those independent variables to a dependent variable Y, right? So here the dependent variable for us is a categorical value, and it is a binary. In case of binary classification, it is a categorical in case of a multi-class classification problem. So this is what the data description is. Now when I want to map this one, so there may exist a linear or non-linear relation between the given input and the output, right? So for example, if it is a linear relationship, right, I could able to explore this linear relationship between the input and output, right? That is the X1, X2 and this Y, using a simple linear classifiers, right? So if it is a non-linearly connected, if they are non-linearly connected, right? So then I have to use some non-linear mechanism for mapping this data, right? So this non-linear classifiers, what we have our artificial neural networks and other different higher advanced neural architectures or deep learning architectures. These are all non-linear classifiers, right? So for example, a logistic regression is a very simple linear classifier where we will be representing the relation between the given input and output in the form like Y equal to W1x1 plus W2x2 plus W3x3 plus we'll continue up to Wnxn. So this is a very linear relationship that we can able to explore, right? And this logistic regression is a very simple model that uses a sigmoid function for finding the mapping between your y and x here. So for example, what I said is in the case of a linear or a simple cases, how do we represent y in the form of w1 x1 plus w2 x2 up to wn xn, right? So now what I will be doing is, so I'll introduce one more a variable z. I'll call this z equal to w1 x1 plus w2 x2 up to wn xn. Then y equal to f of z. So what is this function f is? Is this f in case of a logistic regression? This f will be a sigmoid function, right? So then y equal to 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus z. So this will be the value. No, how do we, for example, why we want the sigmoid function is in case of this expression w1 x1 w2 x2, right? When we use this form, the output what we will be getting will be a linear value, right? Will be a linear value, right? So for example, it may be 100 or 120 or 240 or 10.5 or whatever it is, because what we are doing is that we are performing a simple no sum of the product between the weights and the independent features, right? For each of the features x1, x2, x3, we have certain weightage, that is w1, w2, w3, right? So now what we are doing is we are taking a sum of the product between these weights and features. Now the output will be a linear number now. So now the question is like, how do I transform this linear sum, right? A value, right? A real value into a categorical form, 0 or 1, right? So now for this one, we are using a sigmoid activation function, right? 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus z. So that will transform any real value between 0 and 1. So for example, I'm taking a record and I'm each of the attribute, that is a feature value, I'm multiplying it with their corresponding weight values, and I'm taking the sum now. And what I will do, that is z. Now 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus z will give me a value, that is output, right? Will between 0 to 1, 0.5, 0.6, 0, 0.15, something like any value which range between 0 and 1, right? Now what I actually want is, I want y as either 0 or 1, but now what I have is y equal to some a float value between 0 to 1, right? Now how do I transform this float value, that is, into a 0 or 1? By simple threshold mechanism. If it is above 0.5, it will be considered as 1. If it is below 0.5, it will be considered as 0, right? So this is how this logistic regression will be working, right? So logistic regression will help us to solve a binary classification problem, right? So in this we use the representation y equal to w1 x1 plus, sorry, no, in this form, but the actual output y we wanted in the form of a categorical value, that is 0 or 1, right? Now to convert this no weighted sum, right, of these independent features, uh, I'll be using this sigmoid activation function, whose function is no y equal to f of z. This f is nothing but 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus z. That will output as a value between 0 to 1, and using a simple threshold, we can able to convert that as a 0 or 1. If it is 0 normal, 1 abnormal, or 1 normal, 0 abnormal, whatever it is, we can able to implement. So this logic we are going to use to identify a malicious URL. Any queries with this one on this logistic regression? Very briefly, I have no, I'm not presenting or I'm not writing anything. If you want, I can just write on my whiteboard. So if you have any further questions or queries on this logistic regression, no, we will be. Otherwise, I'll do one thing for the benefit of people. I'll share my whiteboard so that we will discuss it one more time. Take my I think the board is visible to people. So what we have is like x1, x2, x3 up to x. Sorry, I have trouble in writing. So we have this input, no different features that we try to map it to our y. The y will be, either 0 or 1. So this is what the data what we have. So this I am going to represent this entire set as capital X actually, and this is our y. So when there exists a linear relationship between this x and y, we could able to represent this y as W1 So this will be the relationship what we will be exploiting to map the given input to a output y, right? But in our case, if it is y has to be output as 0 or 1, what we use is intermediate one representation z equal to, where we'll use this f of z, which is equal to nothing but 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus z. Now in this one, what will happen is the y will be transformed from a the real number into a 0 to 1 range actually. So now using a simple threshold, what we will do is we will convert the 0 to 1 value into either 0 or 1. So this is what a logistic regression will do to classify a given data, right? So this W1, W2, Wn, all this will be identified an optimal value for this W, that's weights are identified based upon the given training data to the model, right? So initially when we have 1,000 records, what we will do is we will take 60% or 70% of the records for training and the remaining for testing our model, testing the performance of our model. So now we will use the 600 or 700 records for training our model, right? So now when we give those 700 or 600 records as an input to the model during the training process, it will identify an optimal values of this W1, W2, so that exactly the given input will be mapped to the output Y, right? So once it is during this training process, what is actually the output is the weight values, the optimal weight values that will help us to map the given input to the output. That's the output of a training. Any machine learning process, that's the output, right? So what we do in case of even if it is a neural network architecture, what we will do is based upon our understanding on the data, we will design a neural architecture. The architecture meaning that nothing but the number of layers, and in each layer how many neurons that has to be. So all this, right, we will design. And once we have this architecture, and during the training process, the weight between each of this neuron connection will be identified, right, during the training process. So that's the output actually of a training process. Once we have these weight values, right, then for a given test data, easily we can apply this weight and the given text data, and we can able to identify what is the corresponding y value for the given text input, right? So that is how any machine learning algorithm will function. So we will move on to this malicious URL detection. So for all our machine learning algorithm implementation into Python, the scikit-learn package alone will be more sufficient for us. And when we want to utilize any deep learning algorithm for solving our problem, classification problem, then we need to use this Keras or TensorFlow or PyTorch or any other higher level packages, right? So now we will just explore the scikit-learn package itself, right? So this first what we need to do, process I told you is the given data or the available data has to be divided into two for training and testing, right? So this training and testing itself is more trivial problem. For example, I have some 1,000 records. Like first 800 records are normal, and the remaining 200 records are abnormal. Like 700 are normal or 300 abnormal. Like this I have, right? First 700 are normal records, and the last 300 records are abnormal records. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this 1,000 records into two for training and testing. 60% I'm going to take for training, 40% I'm going to take for testing. Now, just simply what I'm doing is first 600 records I'm taking for training. Now, what will happen is all the record whatever I have taken for training my model will be of normal data only. So the model will be biased towards, right, normal records, right? And during the training process, the model is never been exposed to the normal record itself, right? So that is what the problem will become. When I expose the model, right, for testing, right? Now, assuming that all the 600 records, whatever I have taken, right, are normal records, I have trained the model, right? Now I am going to test the model now with the remaining 400 records. Out of this 400, 100 are normal, remaining 300 are abnormal. Now, when I just to test the model, what will happen is these 300 abnormal, there is a higher probability that these 300 abnormal may also be considered as normal by the model itself. Why? Because the model has been exposed only to the normal records. It's not been exposed to the abnormal records during the training process, so that the weight value explored during the training process will not be efficient to map the abnormal records appropriately to the corresponding y value, right? So now, majority of the time, what we will do is we'll just do a random shuffling of the available data. Now I will do the shuffle of all the 1,000 records. Then I will split the data into 70 and 30 or 60-40 ratio. This time, guaranteed that the record may be evenly distributed. Now, if it is a two-class problem, this simple kind of solutions will be sufficient. But think that I have a multi-class problem wherein I have more number of classes. What I want is in the training data set, I want all the category of data to be available now in an equal proportion. For example, I have 4 category of data and I'm taking 600 records. Then I should have 150, 150, 150. Equal proportion, or like slightly 140, 160, 130, 170. This is also fine, right? So almost equal in proportion. But if I have the data in like unequal proportion, then that is also not suggested one. So for this kind of one, we have a process called k-fold cross validation, right? We can use that technique. So using which, what we will be doing is we can able to select a best subset of available data for training the model, and the remaining we will be taking for testing or evaluating the model performance, right? So the train test split itself will be more cautiously we have to do. And for example, if we have all the data in different ranges, then we need to perform no, either scaling or normalization of the data, right? So there is a thin difference between scaling and no, normalization. Majority of the time, no, a standard scaling will be sufficient for us, right? So what it will do is it will scale our data between a range, so that there will not be any overfitting issue. If the data is not being scaled properly, right? If the data input data, right, x1, x2, x3 are in different ranges, then there is a higher chance that the model what we are training will be overfitting, right? So will be overfitting. So overfitting meaning that so your data, your model will be performing good for your training data. When you expose the model to a new test case, the output accuracy will be very low. So that will be the problem, right? Of overfitting issue. So to avoid that, initially what we will do is we will use we will take data in equal proportion, and then we'll do normalize the data, and then we'll apply to the model. Then the third is like if still the model is no overfitting, if we feel that the model is overfitting, then what we can do is we can use some regularization technique, L1, L2 regularization, or no higher level. If we have neural architectures, we may use dropout regularization. So some higher level of overfitting, if we find, then we can use this other regularization approaches to overcome this issue, right? So there may be an underfitting issue, right? The model will not perform both for training and as well as testing data. In those cases, no, we may be right. So in those cases, like when we have very less number of very less accuracy for both training and testing, then we have to think on the no re-architecting our model, or this model may not be able to explore the no relationship between the data, or the data may be non-linear. I may be using a linear approach for solving no the classification problem. So in these cases, no the data, sorry, your model may underfit. So underfitting is a easy that issue can be resolved easily, but overfitting is a no very challenging problem that needs more focus, and it is being addressed in stages actually. So we have to check whether we have taken the data in a correct proportion, whether we have taken we have normalized the data, or for example we have to understand the distribution of the data, right? So after all performing this one, then we can able to overcome this overfitting issue, right? So this is all I have summarized. Now we'll go one by one stages, right? So we are going to use in this malicious URL reduction problem, we are going to use logistic regression for classifying a given URL as either malicious, that is good or bad, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to take a set of training data in which each of the URL what we are considering is labeled as either good or bad, right? Now I am going to take this data given as an input to the logistic regression classifier, and I'm going to train the model. After training, I'm going to test the model using the some test cases, and then I'm going to see how the results are, right? Now in this case, like the input data here, which is URL, is a string data. So what I have to do is I have to vectorize the data, then I have to give it as an input, right? So here we'll be using the train test split, one functionality for dividing the data for training and validation, and the next one is a vectorizer, and the third one is a logistic regression classifier, right? So and then so this is a utility function, right, for cleaning, for processing our URL. So some URL may contain right some uppercases. So uniformly what we do is we convert them into lowercase, and then we divide split them, right? We split the URL by slashes. For example, some slashes we will have, right? So within our URL, like for HTTP yes:/. So we'll split the URL into multiple segments based upon a slash. Then we'll, if there is some hyphen, So for example, Facebook something.com, something like it will be there. So some fake sites, right? That will be it will act like same, like the look and feel will be very similar to our actual site. No, that but URL will be slightly vary. We will be our normally what is it human tendency, we will not look into that minute changes in the URL. Immediately we'll click on that, reading that it is a legitimate URL, and then we will land it up in some problem. So now, even though we are making a clip in our application, if there is a background, some model, let us running, think that you have a web application in that, even though if some malicious websites URL have been posted, now usually if there is no security mechanism, what will happen is directly if I click, what will happen is the page will be redirected to that fake website, right? That is what will happen. Now what I want is within my web application, right? I'm going to have in backend this machine learning algorithm, right? That is malicious URL detection algorithm that is going to get not a trained malicious detection classifier is running in the backend within my web application. If any user is clicking on a particular hyperlink, right? So which I have maybe posted, or maybe another third-party user might have posted it, right? So what has to be done is that URL will be validated by my backend model, and if it says that it is a good one, then the page will be redirected to that algorithm. Otherwise, the page redirection will not happen, and an alert message may be given to the user stating that it is a fake or some anomalous site, right? So this simple kind of mechanism will help us to save our users from landing in from prevent our users from landing into many troubles actually. So this is a simple mechanism. So similar kind of mechanism is being adapted for detecting fraud or some anomalous orders. For example, Dell e-commerce platform, right? So we all might have used the Dell e-shopping platform where we can able to order any Dell product, right? So there in the back end, once the order has been placed from a customer, they will be many orders may be COD, or many may be like online payments. Even if it is an online payment, it may be a credit card. No, there may be a fraud credit card they might have used, right? Forged credit card. No, they might have used. Now to detect all this one, what they have done is right from 2016, all the data transaction, right? They will screen in the backend manually before delivering the order to the customer, right? So once the order has been placed, a backend team, they will validate whether it is a legitimate order or not. Because, for example, the delivery address may be in some state, and the credit card may be from some US or some from. So then it may be thought like it may be anomalous. So further cross checks has to be done manually, and then if they feel like okay, they have used all the data, so all the some cross checks have been found validated correctly, then they may deliver the data product to the customer. If they feel like if there are something fishy, they will ask for some other supporting or some documents, then they will release the document. This is what the normal process, that manual process that they adapted earlier. Now what they have done is all the transactions they have collected, right? And they have labeled them as fraudulent transaction or normal transaction, and they have trained a simple logistic regression only. They have used logistic regression only. They have not used any other sophisticated mechanism. Still, this Dell eStore is having this a trained logistic regression model for performing a backend analysis of all the orders placed by the customers. So and the trivial part here is like the processing has to be done in real time. So once the order is placed, it has to be checked in on real time, and it has to be taken to further processing. So what they have done is they have trained a logistic regression, and before that they have collected all the data, they have labeled. Similarly, as what we have discussed, they also faced the same problem, like the volume of normal data was very higher, and the fraudulent data was very less. So this was the very first challenging scenario what they have faced, and similar to our discussion, they have used the oversampling technique. So synthetic samples they have generated and they have trained the model, and the model is performing to an accuracy level of 92 to 93% actually. And if they feel any order placed by an end customer as a fraudulent, right? Immediately they will not reject it. So backend, then manually they will screen it. So earlier, 1,000 transactions if that are happening a day, all those 1,000 transactions have been processed in the backend, and then it will be delivered or rejected by the team. But now what is happening is all the transaction has been screened by this trained AI model in the backend, and once the model says that no, it is a fraudulent one, then the backend team will check that one. Now think that out of 100, only if you 10 or 20 may be rejected by the model, and those 10 or 20 will be checked by the team in the backend, and it will be taken for further analysis, right? So this is the advantage of AI model, right? So even in spam filters, earlier rule-based logics were used. Now sophisticated AI mechanism have been used now. So all these are different scenarios where this AI-based solutions we are using. One we have discussed, that is our Windows Defender, right? So coming back to our program execution. So this URL cleans is a utility function which will accept each and every URL, and it does a few pre-processing of the text data, and it will return back the cleansed URL for vectorization, right? Now, for example, if you take this URL, the most common is the domain.com. It will be if it is available, it will be removed, because it is with this com word which is available in the URL, we cannot able to discriminate a malicious and a normal URL. So we can just remove this one. So something like if it is a malicious URL, will end with .eu, .ex, or something like some fishy domains it may be ending with, right? So that we are not removing. Only the very common .com domain we are removing it from the malicious URL. So that's the use of that utility function. Now from the given path, we are reading the CSV file, right? And here we have an option called error bad lines equal to false. What is the advantage here is, when we store our data in the form of a CSV file, and if our file, each of the record is containing some 5 attributes, right? Suddenly, if it is 5 attributes, then for each record, it may be like having only 4 comma. If I have 6 comma or 7 comma that are available in there, it means that it is erroneous, right? So I should skip off those records, right? So when I give this error bad lines equal to true, right? Then I can skip off reading those records. So that is the advantage of this attribute available within this read CSV function. Then I am transforming that data into a which has been read into a data frame, pandas data frame, and then we could able to see that it is URL label. Those are the 2 attributes that are available in that, right? So one is URL, which is a text one, and the second one is a label, which is bad or good it is, right? Then the next one is, as I said, for the benefit, we are doing a shuffle, right, of our record. So for performing a shuffle operation in sklearn, we have a utility function called shuffle itself, right? So we can use that one, and many of the time, in the return argument, it will have some trouble. So that's why what I'm going to use is, I'm going to use a manual logic here. I'm going to take the length of my data records, that is the number of records available, and then I'm going to perform a permutation of it, and I'm going to assign that into a new data frame, right? So now what will happen is randomly all the rows will be shuffled now when we use this kind of arrangement. And once we have that, right, I'm going to take from the data, I'm going to take the URL separately and the Y, that is the label separately, right? So once I taken this URL and as well as Y, that is label separately, the next code block will help us to vectorize our URL. So what I'm doing is I'm applying this URL cleanse, right? So before vectorizing this URLs, and here the vectorized data is our X now, and the label are available as in Y now. Now I'm going to use this train test split, right, for splitting my data set into two sets. So here the test size I have given as 0.2, which means that 20% of the data I am going to take for testing. 80% then will go for training the model, right? So now we'll the output for this or the return for this train test split is four different NumPy arrays: X train, X test, Y train, Y test. Because for training and testing, the X and Y will be varying, right? So we got this four now. Now, next step is I'm constructing a logistic regression classifier object. Then I'm fitting the classifier with the X train and Y train, right? So this is a trained model now. The trained model meaning that it the coefficient or the parameters of the model will be explored, right? That is your W1, W2, W3 will be explored during this training process. Now I just want to check the performance of this model, right? So what I'm doing is to the trained model, I'm calling the score method and I'm passing the X test, which is not being given to the model during the training process, right? X test is a new data to the model now, and its output will be compared. That is Y predicted will be compared with this Y test, and it will the classification score will be calculated. So out of 100, so what is the classification score? We will print. If it is close to 100, then it is more accurate now, right? So these two no codes or no code blocks are used for saving the model, trained model in a persistent store, right? So persistent file. So we can use this and as well as this is for our vectorizer. So after this one, right, now we may give any set of a list of no URL, and we can ask, we can take our a model, trained model from the persistent storage. Assume that up to this I have done on day one and I have saved the model, right? Now I want to just check the performance of the model, or this trained model I want to embed within an web application, right? So now what I can do is I can read the model from the file, right? And I can send this new test data, right? URLs are the new test data that I am vectorizing, and that vectorized test X will be applied to the trained model, and whatever the prediction results that we can able to print here, right? So for example, I have given here two hackthebox.eu and facebook.com. The two URL I have given, right? The model has given us bad and good as result. Right? The accuracy of the model is now visually if it is good. In the same way as like an logistic regression, we can use other classifiers like your SVM. In case of SVM, we have three different types of kernel. One is linear polynomial, and another is an Gaussian or radial basis function kernel. If it is in the case of a simple cases, we can use a linear or a polynomial kernel, right? So for solving our classification problem. But the problem is like when we have a large volume of data, this will take more time for training, right? The time taken by this SVM model, right, will be more, right? Even I'll just leave this code. If you just run this code in this Google Colab platform itself, it will take more than half an hour for the model to fit the given data, right? So even the execution will be within this, right? It will take this line of execution itself will take more time actually, right? So you can just train and work on this one. So here essentially what we have done is we have taken a data, performed a few basic pre-processing operation, and then we have split the data, then we do vectorized it, then we have performed a training and we evaluated the performance of the model. So very simple it is, but it will able to solve a efficient cyber security issue. So any questions here? Right. So I have few questions in the chat window. Right. So for example, no abnormal records. Right. So for example, these abnormal records, meaning that here in this case, in this malicious URL case, as I said, when you do split this, right? When we do split this given URL, even for this case, right? Even for this case, hackthebox.eu, right? So what we found is the .com will be a common URL. We are skipping it. This malicious URL will be like EU, IX. So this kind of domains are maybe appearing in the URL. When you do vectorize them, right? So these will not be available within our normal URLs, right? So those are the differentiating features that the model will look for, and it will use them to discriminate between a normal and abnormal URL. So similarly, in case of features also, few of the features, for example, in case of network anomaly detection, in the next problem, what we are going to see, what we will do is we will take the network data. In the network data, what we will have is the source ID and the destination ID. For example, if there is a malicious node, its ID is some 15, right? And the majority of for example, the anomalous data is being generated from this ID 15, right? So then what we can do are the data whichever is sent to a node ID 15 is being dropped, right? Then in those cases, what we can do is, okay, if an ID comes with this 15, then we could be able to discriminate between a normal node and an abnormal node, or a normal traffic from a malicious traffic. So similar, this kind of features, right? The features which it is being used to discriminate will be varying, right? So that is why what we can do is we can use some, for example, I have been given some 40 or 60 features, right? That is X12, X60 I have, and I have one Y. Then it doesn't necessary that all the 60 features has to be used to map this or classify the each of the record as a normal or abnormal. So what we can do is we can select few features that will help us to better map the given record to Y, right? So, for example, we can correlate this scenario to our education side also. For example, what we have is all the course marks of the student we have, and we are going to evaluate the performance of the student. Right? For example, certain times what we will do is few courses. For example, that course may be in. What I want is I have all the marks of a computer science students, right, in a class, and their courses, whatever they have taken during the semester, I have with me. Then I want to evaluate their performance on their core subjects. Now, in this one, what I can do is I don't need all the courses marks. What I need is I will take only the core subjects of computer science, and then I can evaluate their performance. What we are doing is we are selecting certain attributes here, that is certain courses here out of the available entire course records, and then we are trying to find out the score of the student. For example, a student who is good in core subjects may not be performing good in interdisciplinary subjects. That may be the scenario. So now, as my intended objective is to evaluate the core competency, the core skills competency of a student, then I will be taking only the certain subjects only. Now, depending upon the problem, it is our responsibility to select only those set of features that will help us to better do classification. So we can do automate this classification approach, right? What we can do is we can take this as an optimization problem, and we can solve this feature selection using some optimization approaches. Even genetic algorithm we can use. So what we will do is we will train a genetic algorithm and then what we will do is we will we will select which subset of the features are helping me to map the given input to the output y in an efficient manner. Here the objective function will be our classification score actually, or the accuracy. Which subset is giving the highest classification accuracy, that subset will be taken for training the model and further processing, right? So that is how we have to select the features if we want to do it in an automated fashion. So I hope I have cleared the question, and if you have still any question on this, I just want you to I'm waiting for response from the participant name here from the display in the chat window is Vandita Grover. Is your question is being answered? Okay. So meanwhile, we'll move on to the next question. Like, why do we use a min-max scaler? We can use other approaches like standard scaling also, right? But min-max scaling has one small advantage over the standard scaling, right? So the distribution of the will not be Gaussian, right? The distribution of the feature will not for example, when the distribution is not Gaussian, we can use min-max scaling when compared to standard scaling, right? When the features have a bounded intervals, right? For example, if there is a proper defined range for each of the feature, then we can use this min-max scaling, right? So instead of a standard scaling, we use this min-max scaling when the feature values are in a one range, actually predefined range actually. So for example, if we take some images, right? So each of the pixel value will be ranging between 0 to 255. So at the time, we can use, for example, if we take a particular feature like salary, it will be like minimum and maximum salary. It will be in ranges. So minimum salary will be 15,000 and maximum will be somewhat like in between. We will have few range values here. So when we have that kind of features, we may be using min-max scaling instead of a standard scaling. So that's, thank you. Okay, right. So hope we have cleared these questions, and we'll move on to the next problem, right? So it's a network anomaly, behavior anomaly detection, right? I'll share that window. Right. So the very primitive data set available for this network behavior or anomaly behavioral anomaly detection is KDG data set. It has been 95, 99. It has been renewed and it has been released. It's a very old data set. Now we have other UNSW 15. One more data set is also available. I'll be sharing that data also. You can just simply change that data and then you can use the data set for your modeling. You can just do it as your assignment. Just simply change that. Instead of this KDB cup data set, you can use the data which I will be sharing. That also you can use and your model, right? Now, for example, right, directly we start from the data. I hope the screen is visible to people. And just I'll run the script. It's taking some time. Right. So meanwhile, we'll see like for example, right, in the network, right, for each of the data flow, right. So okay. So for each of the data flow, right, we will be capturing the duration of the data transfer and the protocol type, whether it is a TCP or UDP, and the network flag, whatever is being raised in the packets, the source bytes and the destination byte, different the number of wrong fragments which are which have reached your destination, like number of failed login, like so different attributes we'll have, right? So depending upon the these values, right? So we will be labeling, right? At the last, right, we will be labeling it as normal or abnormal data, right? Normal or abnormal network traffic data, right? We have so many network parameters here. Each of the attributes have been captured at different layers of the network, right? So some may be captured at the physical layer, some will be at parameters may be related to data link layer. Like all this have been tabulated here, and at the last label, this is label is the column which is our y. The remaining all our x1 to xn now, right? So we are going to use this data, right? This data is a huge one. So as we discussed, we are going to do a feature selection on this data, right? And then we are going to perform our classification steps now, right? So the shape of our data set is we have in total 41,237 normal, 237 records and 41 column, right? 40 features and one label column, right? Out of this 41,237 records, right? So we have in total, right, 7 category of no records, 1 normal and remaining 6 abnormal. No backdoor, scanning, Apache 2 server error, or some phishing attack, or some no port sweep attack. So like this, we have 6 different attacks, and also we could able to see that the data is not balanced here. The data is not balanced here. For example, normal, as we know, it is in more in number. Backdoor scanning, it is in some thousand, right? And 700. So if we see the sports sweep attacks and all, we have only 2 records, right? So this is very unbalanced one. And if we train our model using this raw data, right, then there is a higher probability that all the test cases may be considered as normal, or few may be as bad. None of, if it is really it's a port sweep attack, it cannot be detected correctly, right? So what I want is I want to first balance them, right? Okay. So for example, we can just convert this problem as a binary classification problem. What we are doing is just we are if text is normal, we are considering it as 0. Else, if any other 6 category, we are considering it as 1, right? So just we are changing the label category from a multi-class into a binary category 1, and then using this label anomalous utility function here. So on this particular column, we are applying this function, so that what will happen is if the value is normal, right, it will be converted into 0, otherwise it will be converted as 1. Right. Now we are going to use an isolation forest algorithm here. So this isolation forest algorithm is mainly used for anomaly detection. Why? Because as I said earlier, in general conventional approaches for classification of or discrimination of normal and anomalous traffic, what we will do is we will profile the normal behavior, and then we will try to find that if there is a deviation from the normal behavior in the current record, then we will classify that as anomalous one, right? So what we are doing is we are profiling the normal behavior, and if there is a deviation, then we will classify that as an anomalous one. That is how we do conventional solution. But now what we can do is we can use this isolation forest, and we can able to identify the anomalies, exactly, outliers. That is what outliers, exactly. This isolation forest is very similar to a random forest algorithm, which means that random forest is nothing. It's an ensembling technique, right? So which is a group of independent decision trees we will combine to take a strong decision, or to make the classification very stronger, right? So similarly here, the isolation forest is a combination of multiple binary trees, right? Each of the tree, right, what we will do is construct by taking a split decision. Always, a decision tree we will construct by taking a split decision using a particular feature, right? So here we have some set of features. We will select any feature randomly, and based upon the features minimum and maximum value, we'll take a random value of the feature, and then we'll split the records into two, right? So those falling lesser values on the left, those falling higher the value what we have selected on the right. So now based upon a particular feature, we have splitted the available records into two now. So next level what we will do is we'll take a next set of feature in the next level of the tree, right? So we will take a next feature, and then we will divide those records into two depending upon the feature random value. So likewise, we will now construct the tree, right? For example, an anomalous, right? Anomalous record will reach the terminal, right? That is the leaf node in a quicker, when we take anomalous record and we do construct a tree, right? What will happen is the path length between the root and the leaf node will be less, right? What I'm saying is we will take anomalous records, all the anomaly records we will take, and when we construct a tree, right? A binary tree out of this anomalous records, the path length between the root and the leaf node will be less, right? So then in the next level, what we are doing is we take the normal records and we do construct a tree. Then the path length between the root and the terminal, that is the leaf node, will be higher. So using this one, we can able to say that a record is a anomalous or normal one, right? So in this case, the path length between the root and the terminal node will be considered for detecting or discriminating a normal or abnormal record, right? So this is how an isolation tree will work. So how do we construct a isolation forest? Is each and every tree will be constructed by taking a feature at random, and the range for each of the feature we have a range of value, right? So minimum and maximum value. Between this range, we will select a random value, and based upon the random value selected, we will be splitting the records as either those which are having lesser value than that, those which are having higher value and that, like a binary search tree. It is simple like a binary search tree, right? So one level it is completed. In the next level, what we do is we will take a next feature and then we will do split the records. Likewise, it is a recursive partitioning of the available records, right? So based upon a random value of the features, right? So now in this process, we have constructed a tree, and if we see this tree constructed using anomalous record, the path length will be very, very less, right? The path length here meaning that the path meaning that the number of edges between the root node and the leaf node, that will be less in case of anomalous, and in case of normal, the path length will be more, right? So that is what the working principle of an isolation forest algorithm. We are going to use this isolation forest algorithm here to identify the anomaly in a network. So first what we have done is we have taken the data, and we have it is in basic it is a multi-class problem. We are just converting that as a binary problem, then, right? So we'll execute and then we'll see. First record we have executed, second I will just execute now, and then the third utility function we have discussed on this, and the fourth one. And fifth one, what we are doing is just we are doing a count of how many zeros and count of how many one. And next is here it is a encoder, right? Converting the categorical values, categorical features into now here in this one, what we are doing is we are taking all the normal records separately, all the abnormal records separately, because we are going to construct the two different trees. normal and abnormal, right, separately. That is why we are taking all the records normal, all the records abnormal here separately. Then so X normal and Y normal, X anomaly and Y anomaly. So Y, it contains only label, that is 0 or 1. X will contain all the 40 features now. Now I am going to next step, I am going to do the train test split. Here this time I will have 30 70 ratio, and in the next level what we are doing is split of anomaly data. This is a split of normal data. Now here I'm going to concatenate this one. Why we need this concatenation is like I'll right. See, for example, when we are constructing this isolation forest, right? So what we'll do is we'll fit the entire isolation forest algorithm initially with the combined data, that is concatenated data, that is X, all the features, 40 features. With that we will be training. And when we want to check the so this tree will identify a decision function. That is, decision function is nothing but the split one, right? And no, the split is based upon, first split is based upon what feature, second split based upon next what feature, likewise. So the hierarchy of the split will be identified during the training process. And after that what we are doing is we are taking the normal train and we are finding what is the decision score, and we are taking the anomaly data and we are finding what is the decision score for this. What is the accuracy level for normal and what is the accuracy level for the anomaly if we want to find out. Now what we are doing is we are plotting a histogram of that, right, decision score for the normal data in the bins of 50 level, right? So now we could be able to see that all the records have a decision score above 0 now. Above 0. When the decision value is above 0, we can call that function as, right, normal one. Call that record as normal one. Now here, similarly, what we are plotting is again a next histogram plot of anomaly scores, right? Sorry, decision score for the anomaly records. We could able to see that all the decision scores will be in the negatives. Majority it is in the negatives, below 0. So here we are taking a cutoff as 0, right? And when we have a test case, right, we will apply to this decision function, and if it is above 0, we will call that as normal. If it is below that cutoff, we will call that as abnormal one, right? So this is how we do an anomaly detection in case of network, when we have a network flow data and along with the corresponding labels. So the same, instead of an isolation forest algorithm here, right? So what we have used here, which normally detects the anomalies, right? Exactly like this has been majority of the time it can be used for outlier detection also, right? So instead of this isolation forest, we can use any other binary classifier and we can test its performance. And like on top of this one, instead of 40 different features what we have used here, we can use any feature selection algorithm, and then we can again train the model, right? So I have one more code also. I just we are running out of time, right? So any quick questions here in this one? Fine. So I'll just share the next problem, a fourth one, a similar one, but it does includes few other steps as what we have discussed, like feature selection and oversampling. All this will be available in it. So I'll just explain the code different blocks, right? So here this time we are going to use a neural architecture for determining so for solving this classification problem. I'm going to use this Keras package. Always we use a sequential model, right? And these are all as it is going to be a neural architecture only. I'm not going to use any conventional architecture. So so it is only dense layers, right? It's a fully connected architecture, right? So that is why I'm using a dense layers. So if you people have trouble understanding this neural architectures and all the stuff, please ping me. Maybe like after this explanation, 10 minutes, I'll explain you about the neural architecture also. If you require, please ping me through the chat window. We'll discuss on that also. Right now, similar to it, what we are doing is we are reading. This is what that data set which I told you, right? It's a very newer data set released in 2016. Sorry, 17. You can just put up a paper on with this data set also, right? Which is very less explored actually, right? I'll give the link for the data description also, right? So which is very similar to KDD data set only, right? So here what I have done is earlier I have divided the data in for training and testing and put it in a separate CSV file. So you need not require to split the data. So already it has been split and stored separately. So I'm reading them separately, right? Then in that what I'm doing is label alone I'm not taking it in Y, remaining all the other columns I'm taking it in X, right? So similarly in the case of test also, right? So that is what we are doing with this steps. I'll execute it. Okay, we have not mounted the drive, so we close here. So the data is available in my drive. I just mounted the drive and so this is the drive path actually. So in the when we mount our Google Drive within Colab environment, so the path will look like this one. For example, these are the drive folders actually. These are my drive folders. So in this one, our path will look like this one: /content/drive/my drive. This will be common for all people. So after that, where we have our file exactly. Now it will execute properly, right? So here after this reading, what we have done is few of the non-numerical columns we have transformed them into some categorical values, right? Protocol, the state, all these are non-numeric ones, so we have transformed them, and after that we are so y train y test value here if we see that is our we are converting that into a categorical value. So earlier here we have transformed all our x non-numeric columns. Here we are transforming our y, that is our label, right? And after that here we are using a standard scaler. So here, as I said, like we don't have a predefined range for our column. So here we use a standard scaler. So y transformation, then this is what our oversampling, what I was saying, right? So here the SMOT, synthetic minority oversampling technique, right? So this is what we are going to use, right? So for oversampling our records now, for example, if I see this X train and Y train distribution, right, the number of records as similar to your KDD, they are it is imbalanced actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a oversampling object, right, and I'm going to fit my data. So what it will give us is a oversampled one. So where, right, the minority samples, right? Minority classes will be oversampled actually. If I want to perform undersampling, I can use this next code block. But in this problem, I will be performing oversampling of the data. And after that, here, this is a feature selection. So we have more number of features, out of which when we use all those features, the classification accuracy may not be good. So we are going to use only selected features for our model training, right? From the oversampled data, I'm going to fit a see, the feature selection can be based upon right. What I told you is a optimization, problem solving approach, where we can use a genetic algorithm also. That accuracy will be little higher. We have other approach also, where we will rank the features and then we will select high ranking features, like using some the ranking will be based upon some function. Right here, we will be using a chi-square function, right? Chi-square test. So, so using this one, we will select only like 10 or 20, or depending upon your. This is a random choice from our end, right? So I'll just take only the first 10 high ranked features, and I'm going to train my model, right? So, or maybe 12. You can check with 12, 14, 20, like, and you can plot the different, the corresponding score for each number of features, and that also have another analysis that you can present in your paper, right? So now I have taken 10 features only, right? So first 5 rows I have printed and I have seen that one, right? Now this is what my neural architecture. So I'm going to have 3 layers. The first layer will be having 24 neurons, and the activation function will be ReLU activation function. The input shape for that neuron is 500, 10. The 10 is the number of features, 500 is the batch size. Out of all available records, 500 by 500 I will be giving as an input to the model, right? In batch and batch mode processing test. The second layer will have a 32 neurons, right? And the next layer will have a 10 neurons. So which means that it is going to be my output layer, right? In the output layer, I'm going to use a softmax activation function. So if it is a multi-class classification problem, the activation function that should be used in your output layer is softmax activation, right? So this is what my neural architecture actually, right? A 3-layered neuron, neural architecture. So now I'm just compiling my model now, and the kind of loss function I'm going to use a categorical cross entropy. If it is a binary classification, I'll be using binary cross entropy. And the optimization function is an adaptive momentum optimization. Learning rate value is fixed as 0.001, and the metrics I'm going to analyze the performance is accuracy. Now here we are trying the model for 50 epochs. Batch size I have mentioned. The features carries your X values and the Y train here. So epoch wise result here, accuracy is getting increased, right? At every level, after every epoch, we could able to see that accuracy level is getting increased. The model is learning now. Right. So, and after this training, when we want to evaluate the performance, we can use these 2 code blocks, right? So we want to evaluate using the test cases, or if I want to give any one record and check whether it is an normal or abnormal one, I can use this one, right? So this way we will be using a neural architecture for classifying a network traffic as anomalous or normal one. And within this one, we have seen how do we overfit our oversample our records, and how do we perform feature selection using a simple ranking based feature selector. And these are all one-time activity actually, right? So what is the the oversampling activity is a one-time activity, and the feature selection will also be a one-time activity. It will not be a repetitive task, right? So for test samples, we need not to, when we do evaluate the model performance, we need not to do the oversampling, right? Directly we will take the raw features. If it is 40, we will do only feature selection alone, right? Or we will already we know what are all the features that have been selected. We will take only those features and then we will apply it to the model for testing, and then we can just check out the results actually. So after every epoch, model performance is getting increased. It may saturate at one point. See, for example, here it has come down to 10, right? So, but still, it's 50 is a very less number, and also the number of layers I have used is also very less. So, and what I have done is I have taken only very less number of features. So, what you can do is you can increase this number of features here. What I have selected from 10 to 20, you can just take out, and you can check with more number of layers here, right? So that the classification accuracy will increase, and you can train the model and you can test it out, right? So these are all I leave it for the for your assignment, right? So any questions here up to this? So whatever has to be delivered from my end, I have completed. If you have any queries, please. Okay, so some question in the chat box. After having only important features after reduction, will accuracy improve than previous? Yes, definitely. If the features whatever we have selected, right, are optimal one, right? So then definitely there will be an increment in the accuracy. Why? Because it is the feature selection. It will help us to neglect irrelevant features or redundant features, right? So that the accuracy will be increased. Definitely, it will be there will be an increase in. Randomly, if we do select some features and we will train the model, it is not guaranteed. But when we have a proper methodology of feature selection, then it will. Either we can use some feature extraction process also, like your PCA. We can apply a PCA on top of our feature set, and we can extract more relevant or highly relevant features which can best describe your label. Then you can do the training. So any other questions? Yes, you can download these data sets. I will share in the form of a Google Drive itself, so that you can just practice. So is there any other questions to take now, or shall we complete this session? Okay, so maybe if you have any other questions, you can just, we shall discuss it on 21. I have another session on that too. Yes, I'll share the code and the data also. The entire data drive, Google Drive will contain both the code and data, so you can just use it. So thank you so much to the organizing team for a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
So you've
Madam,
to stop the session, sir. So it's really a wonderful session where you have given practical exposure. So hope in the next session also they'll be having this practical exposure.
Sure, definitely.
So it's really a wonderful session. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, all the participants will break for lunch, and we'll start the next session by 2:30.
2:30, yeah? 2:30, yeah? What time?
Yes, sir, 2:30. Attendance link will be shared in the next session itself, not in this session, please. So at 2:30, we'll be starting the next session. Yes, sir.
Okay.